Okay, game two. Here's Vexing Bauble. So yes, I got Vexing Bauble in the sideboard because it's so good. It's just so good against this and against the Belcher Tameshi Belcher um, deck. It just hits so many things in those two decks, and those two are two of the seven pretty common decks in the meta, and it's so much better than something like Trinisphere because what I'm realizing now, and this is kind of the same reason why I put Fatal Push in the sideboard, is because the value over replacement comes from being cheap, being one mana, being something you can cast not on a turn where you would otherwise be casting land destruction. So I mean, that's what makes Vexing Bubble so much better than something like Trinisphere, even though Trinisphere also hits Burn and others. And that's also why Fatal Push is so much value over replacement, because that instant speed gives it a window where it can be played, where any Sorcery Speed removal can't be played. So it's really like, and honestly, I feel like I haven't really appreciated that element of those one drops or instant speeds as much. But it's, I think, a really big factor, and I think that's the big thing I learned when I decided to make the decision to bring Bobble and Fatal Push into the sideboard. So I mean, here it's, I mean, I'm nowhere knowing, but it's probably stopping their opals in some way. Yeah, but Rumble, Rumble is just such a problematic card for us. Gets them basically one permanent mana, one temporary mana for two. So yeah. So the reason why I bolted that was because I knew that my next two turns were going to be accounted for. So, again, it's been kind of the theme the last like few matches is like if I have a Hackdos, it's just best to be sort of aggressive. So that's clearly something, a more aggressive play where I'm like, the bolt would be better served later on, getting rid of something more permanent. But I'm next two turns if I'm going to be aggressive, I'm not going to be playing it, and in that case, get the value out of removing the Eldrazi token early, so I can accumulate from that value while I do my stuff the next two turns. So yeah, I mean, objectively, it doesn't look like a great play, but it's a case where if you're thinking about the axis of winning, which is being aggressive with Hackdos before they do their thing, then denying them that one mana for those two turns in between is more valuable than being able to deal with a threat down the road when they've already sort of taken control of it. So I'm trying to think here. Yeah, so I mean, this was a case where, I mean, I let them play it out. I let them play it out just to see what they have. But yeah, while they're doing that, I guess this was a case where, again, saving the bolt, might have been the right call. Again, it's like I haven't played against this deck enough to know what the percentages are exactly. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is a learning thing. So it's like, this kind of stuff is happening more often than maybe I make a different decision back then. Especially since, like, 4 versus 5 mana maybe isn't that big of a deal. Big of a difference in terms of them doing their thing. But yeah, I mean, in this case, yeah, Bull would have shut that down. I mean, they still had 20 life, so they probably 4 cards in hand, so they probably still could have taken over things. But yeah, it's definitely a case where, in hindsight, I probably made the wrong decision. But yeah, I mean, it was still a good chance I was going to lose anyways, even if I saved the bolt for this. But walking ballista, and that is the game. So yeah, again, it's interesting to talk through these kind of cases in terms of like the objective definition of what's the best play really varies on what your game plan is. And with this deck, it's definitely never super clear. So each of these instances gives me a bit more insight. So, yeah.